I am here today again for those of you who are just tuning in. We're here in honor of Character Day, and also because on that day, LetItRipple.org and the Moxie Institute have launched 2 new films, The Making of a Mensch and The Adaptable Mind. Today is the big premiere, and of course last year we had a film that came out called The Science of Character as well, which is also feeding this conversation. My name is Arnie Johnson. I'm a frequent collaborator with the folks here at Let It Ripple, and they've asked me to join in some of these great conversations. Today we have Don Goble and David Dulberger. You'll have to correct me if I'm saying your names wrong. We're both teachers who have been recognized by PBS LearningMedia as particularly innovative teachers, I think specifically in the world of technology and how you're bringing it to your students. Thank you both for joining us today, and maybe one at a time you can give us a little background about yourselves and what you're doing, maybe how you got into teaching and what you saw about technology in that context, and we'll go from there. Why don't we start with you, Don?
Sure. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm in my 11th year at Ladue Horton Watkins High School in St. Louis, Missouri. This is my 3rd career. I spent some time in the radio television business and the technology business world, and so I've really tried to marry that now into my teaching. What I try to offer my students in my class is really self-directed, self-initiated learning, project-based learning. We do a ton of projects. So I teach multimedia journalism. I teach a lot of different video production, cinematic narrative short films, and we use the iPad to do that. We use digital camcorders, we use DSLRs, we use whatever kind of camera we can. And we're storytellers. And so I really encourage my kids to go out and find stories within our high school, within our community, and we use a lot of different forms of social media to promote their work out there, to get that authentic audience. So we use websites. They build their own blogging websites, and we use Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat and Instagram, and we use all these tools that they love to use, and we use it in really educational value to kind of share a lot of different news stories and video production stories that they create. And so that's kind of the setup here at our school, and I can, before we get off today, I'll share a couple of websites that the students have created that are populated with some of the videos that they've created and a lot of the different social media and interactive pieces to their work.
Cool. And David?
Hi there. Thank you for having me as well. My name is David Dulberger. I'm a 5th grade magnet teacher in Hagerstown, Maryland. I just started my 4th year teaching. I went to Salisbury University on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, where I studied elementary education and studied psychology as well. I'd say my spark, I guess, with technology in the classroom kind of came when I was doing my internship. I actually had the opportunity to teach 5th grade over in New Zealand, and my mentor teacher was one of the more tech-savvy teachers, not only in the area that we were living outside of Auckland, but really in the entire country. And he just really showed me the light with how technology can kind of personalize learning for students. And I conveniently landed my career started at MK Daub, this wonderful school that I'm sitting in my awesome classroom right now, and my kids are at lunch and recess, so they're having a good time out there. But yeah, we are a one-to-one school, so every student has an iPad, and the year I started teaching at Daub was the year we launched the one-to-one initiative. So I've been really excited to be a part of this journey, which kind of started with what can we do with an iPad in the classroom, and now we're reaching these levels. I guess you talk about this SAMR model and different things that go along with education and technology, and we're really reaching these levels of redefinition, which has been really cool to see the growth that I've experienced as an educator and the growth that students have experienced along the way. Now this group of students that I have this year, 5th grade magnet students, they've been at Daub for their whole lives, as elementary school students. So this is their 4th year with the iPad. So really trying to amp it up a lot, and kind of like Don said, we're into the storytelling aspect as well. And as we dig into some of the questions in the Q&A today, I'd be happy to share a couple projects and fun things that are happening in the classroom with my 5th grade students.
Great, thank you both. I'm curious that this is a question for both of you. I think that the introduction of technology into the classroom has been a complicated issue about, what are we preparing them for? How is technology used? Is it, is something to depend on too much? And in the context of the conversation we're having today, which is, the film The Adaptable Mind really talks about what are the skills we need for the future and what do kids need to be preparing themselves for in sort of this new world. Can you talk a little bit about what technology feeds sort of beyond technology itself, beyond just saying now a kid knows how to use an iPad, or now it's really great that they're efficient with an iOS or whatever. What is it that you see this doing for kids that helps them to grow beyond just like, now I can find any information I want?
Well, Don, you mind if I go real quick?
Jump in, go ahead.
Well, just thinking about that Adaptable Minds video, I had a chance to watch a couple of those videos, which the videography, I'm a big fan of making little movies and stuff myself with my GoPro and movies for the classroom and stuff, and I really have to compliment the director on that. But the whole idea, it seemed one of the themes is this idea of having a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset, and I think that's exactly what technology does for students and does for teachers. It doesn't keep us bound to just one textbook or just one activity or one style of learning. It really opens the doors and expands that opportunity for students to stretch their legs and really start to learn the way that their brains are programmed to be taught, and then also learn in ways that they never thought their brains would be programmed to be taught. So I think that's one aspect of of technology in the classroom and how it's really been helping what I'm doing with my kids.
I'm so excited. I mean, I could probably go on for an hour, so I'll really kind of keep it short. There's a couple of things. One, I think the #1 skill not taught in school is media literacy. And if you look at some of the recent data, when students go online and are consuming information online, 75% of screens contain visuals, either images or video, and not as much text. And so we place so much value on text and the book and the writing, and we need to do that. But our kids are also being exposed to their devices. And if you look, I mean, I've got 3-4 devices around me right now. And that's what they're going to be using. And so now, if they're going to use a device that 75% of it is filled with images and visuals, they have to be able to understand and deconstruct what those images are saying and what they mean. Now, by doing so, I have my kids then create their own messages, their own visuals, tell their own stories, and they learn a lot of those media literacy lessons through the creation of their own projects. Now, take aside, from that, they're also working in teams. We work on deadlines, and we use those words very intentionally, of deadlines. They have to help each other. They're publishing their work, so they're becoming strong digital citizens. And they're going out and speaking with individuals for interviews that they may not know these people. So now they've got some communication skills. They have planning skills. They're learning a lot of life skills through this kind of project approach. The technology is just a vehicle for them to construct their message, but it's everything else that's involved that's preparing them, I believe, for college and beyond into the workforce. And I'm confident in saying so because I've taught long enough now. I've had students who have moved on to college and beyond or in the workforce, and I get emails. I hear from them all the time, text messages, and they're really grateful that they were given this foundation in high school because they were certainly then prepared to advance those skills in college, and then they've gotten out in the workforce, and they are feeling very prepared, and they're succeeding. And so I think that's really the part that gets me excited and passionate about infusing the technology in the classroom. It's an easier accessibility and means for them to tell their stories, but then also to publish, and then just to really build on these life skills. It's irreplaceable.
Great, and I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about both of you. I think one of the things about using technology a lot is that it can free you up as a teacher maybe to do things because the students are able to find content. I'm just thinking about like my era of growing up. You had a textbook, and certainly when I was younger, I won't say how old I was, but when I was younger, the textbooks were pretty old school for the most part. And there's been a lot of revisions of textbooks since then, but there was always sort of this idea of there's a central text with knowledge. You have the book for history, and there was arguments about it. one board of education would do this, and then it would be slanted a different direction, and then you'd have to include something about slavery that other folks thought shouldn't be in there. But with using iPads and sort of empowering students to do research, maybe we can talk a little bit about what it's done to that idea about knowledge, about this sort of textbook-centered is sort of the Bible of what you're learning in your classroom, and then maybe on the flip side, what are some of the pitfalls and challenges of that? Because certainly when you open up, then you don't have as many verified sources as sort of the flip side of that. I wonder how often kids come to you and say, hey, I saw this website that said, Africa is actually going to sink into the ocean or something like that. How do you navigate that realm of the excitement of opening up knowledge to like it doesn't all just exist in this one book, and then the sort of dangers and challenges of navigating that research, which most adults fall into all the time. You see on Facebook people posting like, oh my God, you guys, the sky is falling. You're like, look on Snopes, guys, it's not real.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll jump in first on that if that's okay, David. So basically that leads to great discussion of the validity and the credibility of the sites that we find. So basically I kind of look at it as, Google now can answer pretty much any question. When a student has a question, I'll say, you know what, type that in exactly how you just asked me. Mm-hmm. And more often than not, they're going to find an answer. Whereas before, we would have to look into the textbook. The textbook was the sole source. Now we can have thousands of sources. So how do we decipher that? Leads to great discussion leading to what is a credible source and what is not. And I think that's really important because another fact that has come out is that most people, not only just students but adults, their number one news source is Facebook, like you mentioned. And so how do we decipher then what's true and not on Facebook if that's the source that we're getting it from? So these are lessons I think are really important to be taught in school because as an adult I wasn't taught that. I wasn't taught how to read Facebook. Didn't have Facebook. So I think it's important to infuse that. Now here are the pitfalls or the problems to that. These social media sites where students are getting their information and adults are getting their information, those are blocked at schools. And so you have to get around those firewalls. And it's a nightmare. It's a mess. We're still living in this world of fear of social media. And yet kids are going home or going on their phone when they're around the internet service at that school using 3 or 4G, and they're still accessing that information. Not only are they accessing it, they're creating their own information. They're posting their own YouTube videos. Whether we're teaching them or not, they're doing it. They're writing their own blog posts, their own Snapchats, and sharing information. So I think there's a real missed opportunity to teach those skills. And to go back on another side, the pitfalls really, and we've even faced it a little bit today, when you have an infusion of iPads in the classroom or any technology, you better make sure your school has Wi-Fi and has a strong bandwidth. And, when we're trying to now focus on material that's on the iPad and the Wi-Fi goes down, what do? That's just kind of a byproduct now of being so dependent on these in my classroom. So there are some pitfalls, but I'm more excited about looking at and having the discussions of what's valid and really digging into that technology that way.
Yeah, I mean, I want to piggyback on some of the things you said, Don. I mean, we do have this fear that exists in our society of being scared of the resources that are out there, and how do we teach our students to use those resources appropriately, and should YouTube be allowed in schools? Should Facebook be allowed in schools? And different conversations that happen constantly on a daily basis. But at the same time, there's plenty of people out there, educators and non-educators, who are doing their best to make my life easier. So you were kind of talking about how technology can kind of free me up as an educator. Well, some of the tools, like we use My Big Campus, which is a learning management system that's kind of similar to Blackboard, which gives my students opportunity to use a learning management system, which is going to be a necessary skill at any university or college. And then we use a tool called SmartAmp, where the kids actually have a filtered YouTube menu. Basically, they can search up videos that's filtered in a library, and if so-and-so wants to learn a lattice method for multiplication, and I haven't taught that yet, but they know that it exists, or they want to look for an alternate method on how to multiply fractions, then they can start looking these things up, and I know that it's a safe environment for them to look it up in. And the great thing, obviously, about using video instruction rather than just through textbook is that it's at what pace you desire. So the kids can pause, they can speed up. I believe YouTube has features that allow you to do that. There's an app we use called Educreations, kind of similar to our friend Rashawn's Explain Everything app, and it allows you to create these whiteboard videos that my students create, after they've learned the content and mastered it, and then they can post their links in our learning management system. Just the other day we did this, and then the kids actually go home and they pick one of their classmates' videos to watch as part of my kind of flipped instruction model, and they comment on the student's video and give them feedback, and they pause halfway through and they solve the problem, and then they finish watching the video to see if they solved it the same way as their peer. And then we talk about the idea that there's so many things that students are asking that are Googleable questions, I guess we could say. Well, I see myself as the teacher. I need to I can call myself Google 2.0. So I need to be the guy in the classroom that is helping model and answer questions that students can't just type into Siri and find the answer to. I need to. So we ask the question, not just like, what are some of the character traits of the character? It's like, how does the character interact with the setting in the story, and how would it be different if the setting was here? That's not a Googleable question that we can look at about the book Watson's Go to Birmingham or something like that. So that's where my job comes in, and that's where the technology frees me up, to answer the questions that, like Don said, kids are going to find the answers regardless. So I need to step it up, and be modeling and answering these higher order and more in-depth questions and ideas, and promoting this curiosity in the classroom. And that's really what our job is now being freed up as, which is nice, and we definitely have technology to thank for that.
Great. We have a couple of questions I'm going to just jump into from folks who are watching. This one is, with more and more schools moving towards digital technology or one-to-one computers, do you think this is creating a disconnect and contributing to the decline in empathy as mentioned in The Adaptable Mind?
I think that's a very good question. Everyone's always curious, well, are kids going to start walking around like robots because they're constantly on devices? I heard a speaker once say that this next generation of kids is called the pass-back generation, because when the 2-year-old's crying in the back seat of the car, you just pass back an iPad and entertain them. I can't take credit for that. I wish I remembered her name, but she was a great speaker. But I think it's everything in moderation. But it's also, what are you using the technology for? So just before we jumped in on this live hangout, Don and I were kind of catching up because we made an acquaintance down in Florida this summer at Apple Camp, and we were talking. I was talking to him about that. I'm sorry, what is the director's name? It's Tiffany
Schlane.
Tiffany Schlane looks like she has a project going on where kids are collaborating around the world to create one movie or one video project using little video snippets from different countries and stuff. And I think that's a perfect idea of how you're using technology to still stay, yes, you're connected, yes, you're using the device, but you're still showing that empathy for someone in another country, just in a different way, So I think it depends on the use.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it depends. If you allow that to happen, you will. The way I'm not allowing that to happen, I'm modeling for my kids that, yeah, we're going to use the iPad, but now go out and interview an expert. Go out and interview somebody you don't know. You have to get face-to-face with them. That's kind of, that's how we're doing it. And, I can speak for myself as I've been infused with Twitter and technology and social media. My connections and network have grown all over the world, and I've had a chance to meet these people face-to-face. Some I might just have a relationship with online, but I've met a lot of these people face-to-face, and that ice has been broken. And what I'm just trying to do is open my eyes to my students. And when they post their website and they get a comment from Australia, that wasn't possible in my generation. But I can tell you the excitement they have, like, oh my gosh, my message is spreading out that far to the world, and maybe I can meet that person someday. So I could bore you with more anecdotes and stories, but I know we're getting close on time.
Right. Yeah, and I would just add, one of the interesting things is that we're, when you say about empathy, there is this danger of being involved in your screens, but empathy also social media and the internet and also creates opportunities for empathy, because there are a lot of things, when I was growing up, I wouldn't have known about a young girl in Pakistan who was shot for wanting to be educated, and I think a lot of kids were really moved by that experience and probably got involved in things they never would have gotten involved in. So I think part of that is, how do you, just as you both have said, how do you filter what's coming in and what do you look for? Because it's just a tool in the end, and if you don't see it as your life, it's a tool that allows you to feel what you want to feel or get to what you need to get.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you both for being with me today. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to look at those websites, but your stuff was too interesting to interrupt you and get to that. But is there somewhere that you can tell folks? I noticed you've been popping URLs up. You want to re-emphasize that for people who want to see what the kids have been producing and what you were going to show us?
Absolutely. So I've tweeted out now. I've added to the chat. I've also tweeted to the hashtag Character Day.
Okay.
Student websites that my students have created. You can find me on Twitter at DGOBLE2001 and learn all about my students and the work that they're doing right there, and that'd be a great place to start.
Great. David, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. I have a class website as well. It needs to be slightly updated after this summer, but it's relatively new and revamped, so I'm proud of that. And the kids are tweeting now from our own class Twitter, which is actually at 5th grade U, and then our class hashtag is hashtag 5th grade U. And then you can follow me on Twitter as well at Mr. Dulberger. I'm always posting videos from Vine and pictures of what the kids are doing and links to projects and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So they always love to see retweets and favorites from different parts of the world as well.
Great. Thank you both for being here today on Character Day. We'll let you get back to your kids in your classroom and helping the next generation join us in a way that's ready and exciting. And hope you have a great rest of the day and a weekend.
You too as well. Thanks again for having me.
Take care.
Take care. And for the rest of you who are watching, this conversation keeps going throughout the day at characterday.org, and you can also check out all the resources that support some of the work that these guys are doing and everybody we've been talking to at characterday.org. And thank you very much. Take care.
Take care.